Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm late. I had some technical difficulties.
Hi, Chief. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How
Good,
are you?
good. Let me get things started here then, everybody. I really want to thank everybody for being here. We've got a really large group here and a very diversified group. A lot of the people that are here with us are journalists in print, radio, television, all different aspects, in front of the camera and behind the camera. My name is Stephanie Lucero, and I am the president of Hispanic Communicators, DFW. And so we are really happy to be able to present this Zoom with the new chief of police for the city of Dallas, the first Latino, Chief Eddie Garcia. The chief comes to us from San Jose, from my home state, and we're really excited to have a little Q&A. What we're going to do here, I just want to give you an idea of the format. I did mention this earlier, but for the first half hour, I'll be talking with the chief and asking questions, and then we'll open it up to questions from the news media. And since we do have people that are not in the news media joining us here today, we're going to ask that everybody just turn off their mics, and I'm going to give the news media priority in terms of questions, because this is who we are. We are an organization that represents news media. So, Michael, if you could silence everybody's mic except for the chief, we'll get started here. Chief, welcome. First of all, welcome to Dallas. We're very happy to have a Latino in the position that you're in. And one of the first pieces of information that we first got about you was that you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. So that was good to know. Tell us a little bit about what your plans are. This is your 1 month in the position now. What have you gotten a chance to fill out the department and a little bit about the community? Tell us what your 100-day plan is, if you have one.
No, thank you. Those are great questions. I'll tell you what. I think I've learned a lot. I've been almost there's a lot happened the first month here. Whether the tragedy of having an officer killed in the line of duty, having 5 officers who were shot at during calls for service. Those are dealing with the weather and the storm. It was a very eventful month. Having said that, when people would always ask me, how am I going to learn the city of Dallas? How am I going to know? Well, it's not, there's nothing a lot I had to think about other than going out to the different stations. And so I'm touring all the stations. I've ridden patrol in Southeast, Southwest, South Central, and I plan on going out with officers more in patrol. I'm talking to community members from each station. I'm talking to stakeholders at each station. I'm talking with business leaders at each station to really get their perspectives on what we have to do. It's interesting because although we have 7 stations, actually 8 if you consider downtown Central as one as well. What I'll say is that although we're a very large city, but each one of our stations has different priorities and things that are important to them that may not be as important to something else. We talk about my first 100 days is really getting with the rank and file and making sure that we're all on the same page, letting my rank and file know that they're supported, letting them know that we need them to work hard, that we need that we need to be focused. We need to be data driven. Obviously I'm not naive to the issues that face us here in Dallas and coming here. Having spent the last 5 years as chief in San Jose, where violent crime is going to be a main focus. We need to turn that ship around, and we're going to do that in different aspects of it. I've already met with criminologists. We're coming up with a plan that's going to assist us in that endeavor. And so getting that plan in place, ensuring that our individuals, our staff know that, I'm going to be holding people accountable for their roles and their jobs, letting them know that I support them, letting them know that this is a team effort with regards to what we're trying to accomplish. So in the first 100 days is looking around the department, seeing where we need to improve with regards to getting more officers out in our neighborhoods and in our streets, ensuring that our mission of investigating violent crimes is accomplished as well, letting them know I support our officers, letting them know the community that I support them. I have an attitude, what's called Weed and Seed. It's a program actually when I started back in the early 90s, which was federally funded. It was a Weed and Seed program where we need to go out and weed our communities of the criminal element. But at the same time, we have to piggyback that with seating and give our communities hope, because too many times police departments just do one or the other, and we need to do both. Taking the criminal element off the street while building strong community trust and ties are not two mutually exclusive terms, and we need to do both, and I'll demand that we do both. And so getting out with the rank and file, letting them know what our mission is with our community, let them know I support them as well, and that they're going to be stakeholders in this process, are things that I'm taking and that I'm doing now.
You mentioned EBC. What does EBC stand for?
EBC. I don't remember saying EBC.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Okay, maybe I misheard you. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
I said weed and seed.
Weed and seed. Okay, I'm sorry. I misheard you.
That's okay.
Obviously, you know, Dallas has had its share of pains involving the minority communities here, just like a lot of other major cities have. But we, you know, lost a number of officers several years ago, and you're familiar with that. What specifically do you plan to do to stop the violence in terms of everything that's going on with the Hispanic community, most specifically? Are you working with Hispanic leaders? Are you bringing in? I understand that when you were in San Jose, you were involved with the Unidos group, I believe. Can you tell me a little bit about any specifics that you have in mind to work with the Hispanic community to stop crime and maybe just all of the racial tension, try to ease some of that as well? I know that may not be your job description, but what are your thoughts?
Well, let me take that second part first. So one of the first things that I did when I arrived, and yes, I am working with Latino leadership, but one of the first things that I did for legitimacy and to ensure that our community, particularly our immigrant community, our Spanish-speaking community, know that this police department is here to assist and help, is going out. And one of the first things I did was go out to San Juan Diego and speak to the congregations of San Juan Diego in Spanish, letting them know that we're here, that we support them, that our role is to reduce violent crime, but to ensure that we increase community trust. And so I'll be doing that and continuing to do that and sending that message out, which is very, very important. I think it's always, it's good when individuals see someone that looks like them, speaks their language, that can help them understand and know, and hopefully that ease some tensions, and that will, when people know that what I stand for and what we're trying to do as a police department here. With regards to violent crime, it's a three-prong approach, and for their overarching approaches, the first approach is to really, we're going to focus on our areas that that we know have violent crime. And in those areas, the data suggests, and working with criminologists, the data suggests that about 20% of addresses in impacted neighborhoods are responsible for about 80% of the calls for service. So we need to be specific, focused, and driven and intentional about what we focus in our areas. We are going to have more presence as law enforcement in those areas, not over policing, but certainly there to reduce violence and be visible. We need to take the criminal element off the street. There's no question about it. I mean, the second part of that is to disrupt criminal enterprises. And what that means is these individuals that are preying on our community and our city, they have to meet somewhere. They meet at places. In Dallas, we have drug houses that we're targeting, and the drug use that goes on, and the drug dealing that goes on. And it's in an area where we're going to be targeting those places because we know that that's where criminal enterprises do often meet. The next step that we're going to do, and these are all overarching, there's a lot of prongs to it, is the community piece and the hope piece. And it's really bringing impacted individuals, generally who are gang involved, who have not yet graduated to violence, and bringing them together with federal partners, local partners, community victims, to explain to them that we will use every tool in our arsenal to ensure that violence does not exist in our communities, and that there are going to be severe consequences if they do that. But then we're going to couple that, because then we literally leave the room, and then in comes programs. We need to bring education. We need to bring mental health. We need to bring substance abuse. We need to bring jobs to our communities. We need to ensure that there's hope to our communities. We need to look at our communities from a blight perspective, abandoned homes, vacant lots, graffiti, garbage. and things of that nature, so that we can look at our neighborhoods and really make people proud to live in their neighborhood, and have the officers feel proud as well. And so those are overarching part of the goals to reduce violent crime. We will have data from our criminologists that will the efforts that we are undertaking. There's empirical data to say they work, and so we're going to stay constant. Our officers know our command staff. My command staff's on the same page, and those are part of the ways we're going to combat crime. In addition to building legitimacy within our community, again, getting out to our community, utilizing our MPOs that we have throughout our city to make sure that we're out, and when we go into neighborhoods and weed the criminal element, we have to be mindful, thoughtful, and impactful. When in that same vein, we're just as aggressive in seeding our community with positivity as we are weeding it of the criminal element.
Okay. One of the universal questions that I've gotten from all of the reporters and journalists that I've spoken to is accessibility. In the past, there's been problems with being accessible, having yourself and others easily and readily available to talk to the news media during news events and just in general. So what are your philosophies about working with the news media? And also, I wanted to know, do you watch the news on a daily basis? Do you read the newspapers? I know that's a time-consuming thing, but I just like to know how involved you are in watching and reading what we do. But what are your thoughts about accessibility for news media professionals?
And I'll say this, and I'm not saying this because this is what you want to hear. If anyone does their homework back from where I was in San Jose, I'm not quite certain there was someone that was more accessible in the Bay Area than I was with regards to the media. I think it's important that a police chief stands tall in good times and stands tall in bad times to ensure that our community and that our media is given the proper information. You all have a job to do. I don't want to be a burden or a hurdle in that job. And at the end of the day, the reality of it is, listen, if y'all, I'll say y'all, I'm getting used to the y'all. If y'all don't have someone connecting the dots for you, then you're going to connect the dots yourself. And that's something that I'd like to avoid. I like to get ahead of things to the extent that I can. And so I'm going to be very accessible. And so, I'll give you, I know the day that I was introduced as chief, just as an example, there had been one story that was out, and I think we had some media requests to do some interviews. Excuse me. And I think we were going to put off the interviews till Monday. And then I spoke to my media team and I said, hey, listen, let's knock these out now. And I think we knocked them out on a Thursday or a Friday. I can't remember the day. But my point being is I didn't want y'all to wait till Monday to have an interview with the new police chief of Dallas. I wanted just to do it that day because I know how important that is. I'm not naive to the issues that y'all face. And I'm not going to be a hindrance or a burden to it to the extent that I can. Obviously, there's going to be things that I can't talk about at times. But I like to get ahead of things and I like to be accessible.
I did talk to Damian Trujillo in San Jose, a longtime friend of yours and a reporter at the NBC station in the San Francisco Bay Area. For those of everybody else on the call, I work for NBC. I'm an investigative producer for NBC's consumer unit, NBC Responds and Telemundo Responde. And so I looked up Damian, and I know you and he go way back, but he did tell me how accessible you are. And I think that's fantastic. But we also need to know from your commanders, lieutenants, your sergeants, from your detectives, when we're out on a scene of breaking news or even just an investigative piece that we're working on, I've been in this market for 30 plus years, and there have been times when it is just downright frustrating, the hours and sometimes days that we've had to wait for information. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'll say this, we got to be consistent in our message. I'm not a fan with everyone just being given the authority to talk on the record without the chain of command knowing, so that we all know what the message is. I'll be honest with you and say that. But having said that, I certainly don't want y'all waiting for days or hours to do things. I think, as you've seen recently, there have been times where we've gone out on critical incidents where we're trying to at least immediately put something out on social media, so at least you have something to start working on and building on, and getting the message out that way so everyone has it. We need to work on getting those universal global mechanics down, because in the end, it's much easier to put things out and you follow us on our social media as things are breaking and developing, rather than us calling a dozen news agencies to give a status on something. And so we'll get better at that. But that's my philosophy with regards to major incidents, and we'll be more accessible. But I will say, I mean, and I know information gets out one way or the other, but to the extent people are speaking on the record, I would like it to be consistent. But I can tell you that we'll try to streamline that as much as best possible.
Okay, I'm going to call on now Rebecca Lopez. Rebecca is the senior criminal justice reporter for WFAA Channel 8 here. And Rebecca, I'm sure you have some follow-up questions to that.
Yeah, Chief, welcome to Dallas. I've actually covered the Dallas Police Department for more than 20 years, although I've taken a little bit of a hiatus from covering the beat for a little while, but I'll be back soon. And welcome. My questions, what Stephanie was saying a little bit about the openness. There was a time in the past when we were allowed to come in. Obviously with COVID, that might be a little more difficult, but we were allowed to listen in on ComStat meetings, and some of the stuff, obviously, you can't talk about publicly, but it also gave us a chance to understand the department better. Like when I was allowed to come to ComStat every once in a while with the permission of the chief, we were able to understand what was going on. Is that something that you would be open to letting us see how you guys are running the shop and the ship now, I guess?
I am open to that, but I'll tell you what I'm even more open to is to actually have our meetings public. What I'm actually more even open to is, even without having necessarily media there, but that it's on Facebook Live, that we have. I mean, I want to move towards, we have nothing to hide. Here are what the statistics are. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. Now, granted, we have to be careful with that with regards to, we don't want to give our tactics up, also, right? So it's a balance of how much publicly we can put out there. But certainly having the data that we have with regards to ComStat, to where we have crime, and then generally how we're trying to impact that crime is not something that I would shy away from. I would just be careful of I would just be mindful of the tactics that we would give, and how much of that gets out. Certainly we don't want, the individuals we're trying to take off the streets knowing what our tactics are to take them off the street. So those would be the sensitive areas that we would have. But certainly I have no issues with working with our media to let them know what we're discussing at those meetings at all.
I just have another quick, second question, and then I'll let somebody else ask the questions. But Chief, are you driving yourself around, or do you have a security detail with you?
I drive myself.
Are you planning on having a security detail, or are you just going to do it on your own?
I'm not planning on having a security detail.
Okay, thank you.
At least for now.
Well, because there was, a time when, in past administrations when the chief had several officers assigned to them, and those officers probably could have been used out in patrol or somewhere.
Listen, 100%. I mean, I'll tell you, I think I got asked when I first got here if I wanted to get picked up from my house. And I said, what? No, I was proud of myself the other day. I don't know if anyone follows me on Twitter, but I found my own way here without using Google like a big boy. And I got to the office on time. So no, I don't have a security detail at the moment. Listen, I'm not going to say, depending on, I've been a victim of threats before when I was in San Jose, depending on where I am, what I'm doing. But I'll deal with that as those situations come. I don't believe in it's just a carte blanche having one.
Great, thank you.
Good questions. All right, Cynthia Garcia. Cynthia is the assignment desk manager for NBC5 and Telemundo. Cynthia, you have some questions? You're on mute. Unmute yourself.
Hello.
There you go.
Welcome, Chief Garcia. My name is Cynthia Garcia. You talked about getting out in the community, and you went to San Juan Diego Church and how important it is for the community to know people, to see faces that they identify with and speak the language that they identify with. How important, or how will you go about going out and recruiting more Latino officers, bringing them here and retaining them here? Because one of the big problems here that we have is that they come to Dallas, but they don't stay in Dallas. They go off to other police departments. How would you work that so that, you know, our communities, our Hispanic communities stay for a long time? They don't move around. And the more they get to know police officers in their area, I think the more trust they build with them. How would you work that for the Hispanic communities?
Well, I'll say this. So the retention issue, you know, we San Jose battled a retention issue when we had pension reform and wages. And similar to San Jose, I think Dallas has rectified that from a pension and wage perspective. I'm not hearing from my folks that we're losing the officers as we did before. We're not having an issue recruiting in this police department. Obviously, COVID has been an issue with regards to not only our recruiting trips that we've made in the past, or the size of academy classes. It's impacted that way, but we're not having an issue people applying for this police department. Now, we have to look internal and look inside our city to get individuals that want to be police officers. And we have wonderful programs at some of our high schools with regards to individuals that want to become in law enforcement. We're going to continue to cultivate that. But you know what? Sometimes that's not enough. And diversity doesn't always come knocking at your door. You have to go look for it. When I was in San Jose, one of the things that we did, we scoured the country. We had a lot of success going to John Jay College. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to take part in a symposium on Friday morning for John Jay. We partnered with John Jay College, and every single one of our academy classes in San Jose had probably about 10 to 12 individuals from the city, from New York City, that would come to San Jose. And so as we get out of the pandemic world that we live in, we're going to look internal, but then we got to go scour. You know what? There's people that would love to come to Dallas to be police officers, and that will love this city as much as I do. I'll say this, that, you know, although it's great, it'll be fantastic to get individuals that are homegrown from Dallas. It's not going to also mean that individuals from outside Dallas that come to work here aren't going to love this city, because that's me. And so, but we have to be proactive, and we have to be intentional about it. We had it when I was back in San Jose. We needed to hire more female police officers. So we went out and we went to recruiting events specifically to target that demographic. We needed more African-American officers. We needed more Spanish-speaking Latino officers. And we would go to places that specifically we could target those groups because we needed them. We needed to be diverse. Diversity is important for me in a police department. Obviously, we need to do our best to resemble the community we serve. But in addition to that, Dr. Jennifer Eberhardt, who's a renowned doctor from Stanford University, who's an expert in bias-based policing. One of the ways that you reduce bias in general in an organization is by having a diverse workforce. And so it's incredibly important. We'll be proactive on it and ensure that we continue to strive to resemble our community.
Right. And you know what, Chief, I always say, you don't have to be to belong, but if you at least know the language, you can identify with your community that you're working in, and the people will be more prone to run to you and trust you and engage you. So I don't think they necessarily have to be Hispanic, but at least if they know the language, that'd be a great start too.
No, well, absolutely. We need to communicate with our community. There's no question about it. And so those are all areas that we will continue to look at. for sure. And it's looking at our academies that I just went through academy graduation. I liked the diversity I saw. We need to ensure that we continue making sure that our department looks like the residents we serve.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Chief Garcia, tell us a little bit about your background. You're originally from Puerto Rico and you're bilingual, correct?
Yes, ma'am. So I was born in San Juan. I moved to San Jose, when I was a young boy. I learned how to speak English in San Jose, and went to schools in San Jose. Went to high school in a nearby city. I was raised by a single mom after the age of 12, who I'm moving out here this summer, by the way. So I'll have my own home cooked Puerto Rican meals when I get mommy out this summer. But she's my hero. My mom was amazing, sacrificed so much. It's interesting. It's a good story that I always tell people. So when my sister and I were young, my mom went to go talk to the teachers and ask the teachers how we were doing. Well, my sister and I think I was maybe first, second, I remember young age, but we were learning English. And my mom asked the teacher, hey, in her accent that even today she still has, asked the teacher, how are the kids doing? How are me and my sister doing? And the teacher says to us, well, they'll never be at the head of their class, but they'll be okay. And so fast forward to 2016, when I was appointed chief of police for the 10th largest city in the country, Dallas being the 9th. I remember giving my speech and looking at my mom in the audience, because I always say that my stars are her stars as well. And I told that story during my speech. And at the end of the speech, I said, Mom, I think we made it to the head of the class. Was raised, she was like, I can't say, when everyone asks me how I was raised, I can't help but just talk gush about my mom. Every Father's Day, you'll probably see a picture of me and my mom on Twitter, where I wish happy Father's Day to all the moms that had to be both. Raised Catholic, still Catholic, went to Catholic schools. When I applied to be a police officer when I was 20 and a half, back in 1991. And that it's sad, because I asked the academy class the other day how many people weren't born in 1991, and like half of them raised their hands. So that I had to get over that for a little bit. But one of the dynamics that I always say, in a beautifully diverse city as San Jose is, and a beautifully diverse as Dallas is as well, that, I said it back then, I'll say it again, that if you're a stranger here learning how to speak English here, that I'd understand it, because I was there. Raised going to mass every Sundays when I was younger, doing the works, played sports, and then really I wanted a job that was exciting, and ended up applying 20 and a half, and got the job, turned 21 in December. My academy started that February, so I hadn't been 21 for like a month and a half or 2 months before I began. So that's kind of how I came over and through.
Awesome. Chief, I think at the end of this, before we say goodbye to you, I'd like to give you some time to present kind of a message in Spanish for our Spanish language media people who are with us here as well. But right now, I'd like to take you to Diane Solis, who's with the Dallas Morning News. Diane, introduce yourself, and what is your question? You're muted.
There we are. Hi, Chief Garcia. Thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, Diane.
Dallas, as you know, has a quarter of the population that's foreign born. They've just come off 4 years with Trump as president, and they felt like they were targets. That was preceded by 8 years by Obama, and they felt like they were targets. He was known as deporter in chief. The city police, of course, do not enforce federal immigration law, but many in the immigrant community are very wary of getting on the radar of the police because of the way information is shared with immigration authorities. How do you handle that? And what do you say to immigrant families?
Oh, it's a great question. And so when I went to San Juan Diego, one of the things that I spoke to them is the fact that, that we're here for our victims, and witnesses should never fear this police department ever. Those that are respectful of the law have nothing to fear from this police department, absolutely nothing, and that we have their back. And that by them coming forward, we not only make their community safer, we make the entire city safer. And so it's really just building on that message, that we need to do. So it's a very clear message that I send out. Would send it out. I mean, different in the state of California, but it was the same similar message, that our victims and witnesses have nothing to fear. It's very interesting you bring this up. I just had a meeting before this with domestic violence advocates and partners. And one of the things that I spoke about with that perspective is obviously domestic violence and sexual assault are grossly underreported crimes. And that particularly in our immigrant communities who are fearful of deportation and other things, that we need to get the message out even further, that our witnesses and victims will always be taken care of and that they have nothing to fear from this police department. And so those are the messages that we need to constantly give.
Thank you.
Dan, do you have any follow-up questions you want to ask?
Yeah, do you have a backlog on U visas in the sense that police departments often write letters of affirmation that somebody who's foreign born was indeed a victim or was an asset in solving a crime?
Well, I know we dealt with that a lot in my previous department. I'm not quite certain. I don't have the data with me as to if we have a backlog or not, but it's certainly something that we'll continue doing.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now Stella Chavez, who is immigration and demographics reporter for KERA, which is our public broadcasting television station here. Stella?
Sorry, guys, I'm having technical difficulty. Okay. Chief Garcia, welcome to North Texas. And it is very nice to see a Latino face and name heading the police department. I too cover immigrant and refugee communities, as Diane and I go way back. And so I often lean on her for, questions that I have about covering the community. And she asked the question that I, also wanted to ask.
Uh-oh.
Community, at least some of the people that I've talked to and written about, I think one of the things that they worry about is that on the one hand, they might be happy to see a Latino police chief, somebody who's bilingual, someone who kind of understands where they're coming from, but their concern sometimes boils down to the fact that the police officers that they may end up interacting with may not understand or may not have that proper training. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that, like I know that you said you want to send the message, and you are sending the message that immigrant communities should not be afraid to cooperate with police or to report something if they're in danger, or if they're worried about, want to report a crime. But can you talk a little bit more just specifically about how do you get that message across to your own staff, to your own police officers, to maybe have more communication with the immigrant community and refugee community?
No, absolutely. Well, I mean, one, it's our message to the department. I think everything starts from the top. I think when I went to that meeting at San Juan Diego, I had my command staff with me. And I think it all starts from the example set. There is no better way. I can talk all I want about it, but unless I'm out there doing it, people need to buy in to what my vision and what my communication with our community is. And then that does permeate through the stations. We need to have our MPOs more visible. We need to have MPOs that can speak Spanish, that are out in our communities, because we need officers. Although we want our officers all integrating with our community, we also have a high call volume, so we can't necessarily have officers there, but we have MPOs, which is a beautiful resource to ensure that they're out constantly with our community and they're being a friendly face to our community, understanding and knowing that we're a trustworthy source, that we have credibility, And really, it's about the emotional bank account. You know, we can say all we want, but we need to act upon it. Because you know what? That word gets out. You know, the way I see it, if we have a victim of whether it's domestic violence or whatever other crime that comes forward to our police department, is treated procedurally just. It's treated procedurally just, and and we follow our word when we see that, when we do it, then that word gets out and it starts spreading that the relationship with the police department is a positive one. And so not only do I have to continue to preach that from the top and let it permeate down, but I need to have people constantly spreading that message. And neighborhood police officers, as I saw the chat, are a valuable resource for us to get that message out. And again, similar to San Jose, we always have to keep giving the message, always. It's been a busy month, but I'm going to be making my tours. I want to be able to make my my comments in Spanish, put it on social media, have it recorded so we can get it out to our community so that they know and they understand. And so it's just about constant messaging and really being able to back up what we say. And that's something that we have to do, and every major police department in America with beautiful, diverse communities has to do.
Thank you.
Stephanie, you're muted.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Okay, we now have a question from Lourdes Vasquez, who is with WFAA. And I think it'll be helpful as you're asking your questions, explain a little bit about your beat or what you do, because I think that'll help the chief. But Lourdes, go ahead, ask a question.
Yeah, so I am a content editor with WFAA. Chief Garcia actually did your interview in Spanish and translated it and wrote it up for our website. So I was able to see that interview in Espanol. So my question, I've covered immigration as a reporter for almost a decade, and now I'm here at Channel 8. But my question kind of piggybacks off Diane and Stella's. With the U visas, do you plan to possibly enact any kind of policy as far as when officers are presented a U visa document, whether they are to sign it, or is there going to be any kind of requirements? Because I know that's been an ongoing issue from working cases of individuals who have been a victim of a crime and not being able to get that signed.
Well, I certainly don't want us to frustrate that process of getting a U visa. You know, hearing this from y'all right now, I'm definitely going to write a note of it to make sure that I'm talking with my investigative chiefs to ensure that we're not a hindrance when it comes to that, because obviously that's part of what part and parcel with what I just said, that we need to act on what we say. And if we hold our victims and witnesses and those that are responsible to assist us in the fight against crime in our city, then we need to have their back. And so we certainly don't want to be a hindrance to that. And we don't want people thinking that they have to jump through a million hoops to get it done if it's appropriate and if it actually is legitimate. And so I'll definitely look into that because I know it's important. And I think that will certainly help with getting more victims to come forward and to help us in this fight against crime.
And I have a second question to this. I know recently we've been talking a lot about Asian hate crime. Is there anything that you can talk about just hate crime in the Dallas Metroplex? I don't know. I haven't seen what those statistics are as far as hate crime. Is it being tracked? And how is that being tracked as well?
Well, I haven't gotten any red flags that there's anything out of the ordinary with hate crimes. I know there are different states are suffering from attacks on our Asian population. But you know, and I'll tell you, we're not going to stand for it. I think as a community, we have to act and stand by together. Together, we're stronger. And I think it's not just the police department. I think if our community stand with us in solidarity that this is unacceptable, then we're going to be able to send that message. But that's something that if we don't track, we're certainly going to track. I'm a big social media message PSA guy. And we'll love to use y'all to get that message out as well. So that's a commitment to me that I'll definitely be looking into that and see if we can track it. And to be honest with you, it's so sensitive right now. As I made mention, I like to be very proactive. And to the extent that our community, if we had something on our website particularly now that hate crimes are such an important topic nationally. We have something on our website where people could just go and see the data. It's something that we need to do. And so we'll certainly look at how we can proactively be more transparent moving forward as things pop up. I'm not gonna lie, since I've gotten here, there's a lot of things that I think we can be more efficient at. And so as we sift through those things, that'll be something that we'll definitely address.
Thank you. I'm
writing it down right now.
Great. Thank you, Chief. We now have a question from Krista Toralval. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your last name correct, Krista, but will you introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, Chief. My name is Krista Toralval. I'm a new reporter at the Dallas Morning News. Actually, we're both starting our careers in Dallas at about the same time. So some of the elements that you mentioned during the first question about your 100-day plan sounded a little bit to me like the focused deterrence program that got a lot of attention, or has gotten a lot of attention in Oakland, which is near San Juan. San Jose. And it's also called Operation Ceasefire, which your predecessor here in Dallas actually had tried to get going. I'm not sure if it really got up off the ground. So my questions are kind of along the lines of, did San Jose also use that focused deterrence approach? Is that something that you see implementing here in Dallas? And yeah, did you think that it really got implemented here under your predecessor, or did it not really?
I think it was worked on. I think we have something to build on, particularly with working with the office at former Chief David Pugh's staffs now. I think it's something that's needed. I think it's something that works. Here's the dynamic is that there's empirical data, and when our crime plan comes up, that we partner with the criminologists, that there's empirical data that shows that it does work in a long-term perspective. No, we did not implement it fully in San Jose. We had different factors that were involved, but we didn't call it focused deterrence. But we did have what we call here violence interrupters. We had a version of that in San Jose. We had what was called the Mayor's Gang Prevention Task Force. That we had CBOs and FBOs, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, community leaders that would meet with all of our stations in San Jose and all our divisions to talk through long-term solutions. A little bit different than the focused deterrence model. But the issue is the focused deterrence is one prong of the three. You have to have that front end. We can't just wait for focused deterrence to reduce crime. We have to be active. We have to be visible in our community so that they know that we're taking action. But the focused deterrence program is a program that we're going to initiate here 100%. And I think it's going to be more robust, I think, than things that you've seen, because I'm talking to community groups, and part of the focused deterrence program is not just bringing the individuals in a ceasefire model, but being holistic about it as well. And the blight issues in neighborhoods and those issues are going to be important, and to get us out of a long-term solution.
Okay.
I guess I was just curious. I'm sorry. I'll follow up.
That's okay.
Because I was looking at the journalists. We like to not just point out problems, but report on solutions too, or potential solutions. And so, I was looking at the Operation Ceasefire in Oakland, which is smaller than Dallas, but San Jose is actually similar in size to Dallas, and y'all's violent crime rate was so much smaller than Dallas's. And so I was just wondering, what were the keys to success for you there?
Well, in San Jose, the keys to success was we really partnered with our community, and we really partnered with non-police resources. One of the great things that we had that was done in San Jose, which I'll draw it akin to here, is we would have tech team meetings and policy meetings when it came to violence reductions and gang reduction. And we would sit with community groups from those individual districts. It would be in San Jose, it was a captain, but it would be the equivalent of a major sitting with a counterpart that was a community leader. that we'd have discussions. We'd go through the hotspots. We would go, we would have the community groups talk about efforts of what we can do. We would have code enforcement there to work on things. We would have, our Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services there. I mean, it was a holistic, like every city department was involved. And so every city department took a piece of the issues that were occurring. And so we got everybody on board to do certain things. We had relentless follow-up by our officers. I mean, again, the police officers were amazing and working very, very hard there. There's very hard in San Jose. And so on the front end from enforcement was very good. We had incredible support from our district attorney in prosecuting violent crime cases, which was amazing. And then on the back end, we had that community piece and the entire city department piece that from a long-term perspective, our motto there, which is my motto here, we're not going to arrest our way out of this. We need to take action on the front end, there's no question, but long-term, we know and we understand what the issues are. We need to tackle them now. And those are some of the things that were successful for us.
Have you had, Chief, any discussions with the Dallas County District Attorney about any of this yet?
We've had discussions on his support with regards to violence reduction and the plan. Listen, obviously, they're going to be instrumental as well. They're the law enforcement, public safety, police officers, police departments are not the only cog in the criminal justice wheel. And in order for us to get to turn the ship in violence in Dallas, we all have to work together. From not only us on the front end to take that criminal element off the street, but the accountability piece is going to be imperative. And I know for a fact that the criminologists are looking at that data because there is some literature that connects accountability to either reduction or the increase of violence. And so we have to be partners in this. And he has committed to be a partner with us, with me in this endeavor.
Do you have any numbers in mind? I mean, obviously the murder rate here is a lot bigger than San Jose. Have you thought about where you'd like it to be in a year, 5 years from now?
You know what? I'll tell you two things. Number one, you're not going to hear percentages from me, but what you'll hear is I want less victims. What you'll hear is I want to win the day. I want to win the week. I want to win the month. We want to have less victims than what we have now to turn this tide. We need to see neighborhoods turn around for long term. I went on patrol in neighborhoods in Southeast, South Central, and I'll say this, and I've said this many times. There are some areas in our city that look hopeless. And when you live in a hopeless environment, you do hopeless things. And so from a long-term perspective, we really have to work hard to get our neighborhoods together collectively out of that. When we talk about numbers, here's what I'll say about numbers. And here's a striking thing, because I could tell you that I'm going to reduce homicides. We're going to reduce homicides collectively by 100. And I would say most people would jump up and down and say, that's fantastic if you can reduce the homicides by 100. But the one thing that I have made clear, and I say, the disparity of our kids of color that are being murdered is unacceptable. When 90% plus of our murders involve African-American or Latino individuals in this city. And so we could reduce the number by 100, but if that disparity still exists, we need to be equally outraged as we are today. And so to me, it's a lot more than simply reducing the murder rate. It's reducing that disparity.
We're at 6:27 right now. I really want to give you enough time, Chief, to be able to address the Spanish language media that we have with us here today. So I know you've spoken about quite a few things. I'll let you encapsulate what you'd like to encapsulate, and if you could do that in Spanish, that would be great.
Okay, well, here we go. Okay, actually I have some things written down, so I'm going to go from here. Okay, buenas tardes, buenas noches, me llamo Edgar Garcia, soy su nuevo jefe de policía en Dallas. Estoy honorado que estoy aquí con ustedes esta noche. Soy nuevo en Dallas, pero esta es mi nueva ciudad y voy a trabajar fuerte para nuestras comunidades. Cada día los oficiales de Dallas dejan a sus familias, se ponen estos uniformes y hacen trabajos increíbles para ustedes. Han demostrado que morirán por esta comunidad. Un gran sacrificio. Vamos a continuar haciendo nuestro trabajo profesionalmente y de forma inesperada para que ustedes puedan vivir sus vidas en paz. No es un secreto que tenemos retos en nuestra ciudad que vamos a tener que trabajar juntos para poder resolver. La cantidad de homicidios y asaltos violentos que hemos tenido es simplemente inaceptable. Una de las razones que yo quería venir a Dallas era por la diversidad hermosa de nuestra ciudad. Déjame ser claro, nuestros inmigrantes documentados y indocumentados que trabajan duro, que hacen a Texas y los Estados Unidos mejor, respetuosos de la ley, no tienen razón de tener temor en nuestro departamento. Necesitamos la ayuda de nuestros testigos y víctimas, no solo para mantener la paz en sus barrios, pero la seguridad de esta ciudad entera. Vamos a trabajar junto con ustedes y con la prensa latina para asegurar que la fe que tienen en nosotros se va a seguir fuerte y que sepan que nosotros tratamos esa fe como un gran regalo. Nuestra misión es para acabar con el elemento criminal en nuestras calles para que ustedes puedan vivir sus sueños en Dallas. Vamos a cumplir esta misión en una manera justa y profesional. Nuestro objetivo es para construir comunidades más unidas y fuertes. Unidos somos más fuertes, juntos somos más seguros. Sí, soy de California, pero nací en San Juan, Puerto Rico. Hablaba español cuando llegué. Sí, Dallas, Texas es nueva o difícil porque no habla el inglés. No se apuren, porque yo también estaba ahí. Dallas o Texas o los Estados Unidos debe ser un sitio que no importa cómo te parece o qué idiomas hablas, si trabajas duro, no hay nada que no puedas cumplir. Sus sueños se pueden realizar. Únanse con nosotros en esta lucha contra el crimen, porque nunca los vamos a dejar. Que Dios lo bendiga a todo el mundo y que Dios bendiga al Departamento de Policía de Dallas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you so much for being here. We may not have been able to cover all of the questions that everybody wanted to have asked of you, but we'll collect those.
I'm sure you're going to hit me up in these next few months and years. I'm sure you'll hit me up.
That's exactly. We do want to do this every once in a while with you. I think this has been very helpful to the news media within our ranks. Very helpful to get to know you from a personal standpoint and also from a professional standpoint to know your goals. Obviously, we wish the best for Dallas and we wish the best for you. And so I hope that openness that you talked about within the police department and communicating with the news media is authentic, because that's something that I know that the news media really would appreciate overall, whether they're Hispanics or not. So thank you, Chief. We really appreciate having you today with us for this conversation.
All right. God bless everybody. We'll see everybody soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. And everybody, we're going to leave this